Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Trek Con with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Among many others, this is a Deep Space Nine panel. We are featuring Mr. Armin Shimerman. We have Hana Hatae, Robert Hewitt Wolfe, Miss Malissa Longo, always gracing us with her presence, and Mr. Alexander Siddig. How are all of you doing today? All at once.
Go, 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 go.
Great. All things considered.
Yes, all things considered, doing well.
Right. Well, let's just start off very quickly with just, you know, how's the weather? How's the traffic? How's everything going on with you, Hana, up in San Francisco?
Oh, me first. Okay. Weather is warm. We've actually luckily just got a break from all that smoke that's been going on from the fires up north. I think it's the glass fire. There's so many, it's very hard to keep track. But yeah, enjoying the weather. Kind of wish I could get out of my house more, but it is what it is.
How hard was the breathing, Hana, with all the smoke?
Oh my God, it was insane. So we couldn't even open our windows because it was such bad air quality. And we have south-facing windows. The entire side of our apartment is just flooded with sun and window. So it was like 90 degrees inside of our apartment, but we couldn't open the windows. In San Francisco, you don't have air conditioning here.
Yeah.
Nope. So it was pretty suffocating for about a week. But we're in the clear right now. So good. Happy about that.
Are you in the city?
Yeah, we're in Ashbury Heights.
Nice. I grew up in the Outer Sunset.
Oh, no way. That's amazing. We actually lived there 17th in Lincoln for a while.
That's not the Outer Sunset, though.
No, it's the mid-sunset. But still.
Not foggy or miserable enough for the Outer Sunset. I was out on 43rd.
Nope, not into that. It's actually warm where we are. We're on the very top of the hill. So we kind of cut out all of that. The Carl the fog. Yeah, we get a little bit of a break from that. So it's good. But got the air purifier running, so that helps.
Isn't that a famous area, the Ashbury Heights? Isn't that like known?
Hate Ashbury.
Yeah, Hate Ashbury. We're like,
okay.
I think 5 blocks away from there. It's a famous area, but nowadays it's just dirty. I don't know how to explain it.
It was always dirty.
Yeah.
It was never nice.
No, that's
now
fair.
it's lost its charm.
Full of hippies, but it wasn't particularly clean even back in the day.
So it was really not that exciting. Like, I guess it's cool to get there to see the history, like the Dead, Grateful Dead and whatnot. But it's not necessarily a pretty area. So we try to steer clear of that.
Sid, how are you? What's new? How have you been? You're doing this awesome thing called Alone Together. What else is going on? Or would you like to talk about that? We'd love to.
I'm doing great. We're doing great. I mean, we've been, as Armin knows, because he's been frequent guest and collaborator. We've been doing this thing called the Sid City Social Club, which is quite a bizarre name, but hey, it works now. I'm familiar enough with it now, because anything with the name Sid in it clearly is something egotistical. But it's been we've been doing it for 6 months up to last week. We're in our 7th month of doing it, and we have just a phenomenal, great bunch of people who
it was
are
great
terrific.
fun, great fun to do, and good writing.
Yeah, so that's been going on, and we're going to reprise some elements of the drama we started. Armin probably doesn't know all about it yet. I've only seen one script, and hopefully we'll see people through the deepest, gloomiest part of winter with a new take on the series, written by the same fabulous writers, headed by Matt Campbell, who is a fan, who just turned out to be a wonderful writer. And is
fantastic writer,
really, really good.
Really very good writer.
Yeah, and so he's got the stamina to write some more episodes, and we're going to jump in and do them in the next few weeks once we organize the actors. Working on getting the actors nailed down is really hard, especially new ones we've never worked with before.
Sid, would you consider this a second season?
Yes, but I mean, they're only 20-minute little vignettes, each episode. But it's episode sort of 5 So it's a continuation of the first season, but you can call it a second season. It's a bit grand because it's not grand at all. It's so Brechtian, you know. We've got no sets, no props, no talent.
Let me tell you, somebody.
It's got a lot of
but very producible these days, so that's good.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, somebody that watches the internet constantly, Sid, this thing blew up so fast and so furious. I mean, really big kudos to you and the writer, gentleman. What's his name?
Matthew Campbell.
Okay.
He's a school teacher out of Nova Scotia, Canada.
Mhm.
Great. Speaking of writing, Armin, very quickly, you also have a book that we're featuring in another video, but do you want to tell us about that a little bit? Because it's definitely taken up a lot of your time over the last 20 or so years.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, it's for everyone. It's called Illyria, Betrayal of Angels. It's the first of 3 books of a series called Illyria. It's sort of Le Carré meets Elizabethan England and Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and it's on pre-sales now. You can get it at my website, and there's a discount, by the way, for all of you who are partially Ferengi. There's a discount until November the 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, and then it will be in your bookstores and Amazon and all that stuff. I'm very proud of it. It's my 5th novel, so but the best one of the 5.
Oh, wow.
I'm so proud of you, Armin, to have achieved such a huge thing during this time. You are just admirable.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you. As I told in the past episode that we just did, I started writing it in the trailer.
Wow.
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 While you were filming on stage, I was typing away.
Actual typewriter.
Technically,
That's the typewriter, exactly.
Sid has told us that he was playing video games in the trailer. And
I can attest to that because I would see him in
I
there.
can attest to that.
Oh, wow.
But he was very good. He was very good.
What were you playing?
Wow.
Doom or Quake or what was it?
It was anything I could get my hands on, anything that could handle modem speed, because we had a 52K modem put in. That was my one star perk, was to demand that they put a modem in my trailer. In my trailer. How ridiculous is that? But
Wow.
they did it. And so I got this 52K modem, you know, the ones that go bang, 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 when you're trying to get online. So yeah, it would have been, I wasn't a big Doomy guy. I was more of I'm a D&D type person. So
Oh, were you playing like Ultima Online?
I played that for 7 years.
I played it for 4, so we may have run into each other.
Had we known, that would
I know.
be hilarious.
I played a lot of that. I played Dark Age of Camelot and that.
I love the same games as you.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I was the kid on the show. I'm supposed to have video games in my trailer.
You go to
Yeah,
school.
wait, what?
You go to school.
Wait a minute.
Nobody
Wait a minute.
invited me to these video game sessions.
And Hana, you go to school
That is
too.
not fair. Not fair.
that's Principal
Yeah,
Snyder telling you to go to
were
school.
too
But
young
really.
even for video
Okay,
games.
okay, that's fair. All right, but still not fair.
I would have brought the Nintendo in there. We would have had great times, man. It was a big deal.
Ooh, Mario
I'm trying to
Kart.
remember if Ultima Online had multiple servers or if everyone was on one server.
I think they
it would go on
were
one
all
server.
on one server.
No,
Yeah.
Pacific. There was like Pacific and
Oh,
Baja,
yes.
and now, yeah.
They grew.
I feel like I was on Pacific, but
Yeah, I can't remember which one I was on, to be honest. I had some tricked out characters, though. Boy.
nice.
Oh man, I wish Aron was here. He was a gamer too. He loved. He always tried to get me to do the gaming online. Malissa, you were there. You saw him playing a lot of games, right?
Oh, yeah. WoW was his game.
that's right.
Yeah, I played a bunch of that. I played a bunch of that too, and I didn't even know Aron was on there. Wait. Did you play Dark Age of Camelot, Sid?
No, I didn't. I didn't
okay.
play Dark Age of Camelot.
It's like, which faction were you? Maybe I killed you.
I went straight to EverQuest after.
Oh, I hated EverQuest.
So guys,
Well, you guys had a lot of time on your hands.
yeah.
Armin's writing a book. You guys are playing games. I mean, I should.
I wrote books too. Did both.
That's
I was
right.
going to say, in the
I've got-
description box below, we're going to include all of these games, guys, so you can check this out.
It's my book.
Sorry, what were you saying, Armin?
I was gonna say,
Ooh.
I've got
wow.
Robert on my shelf. I've got one of Robert's books on my shelves.
Let's talk about those books, Robert. You've been
Oh.
very busy yourself.
Yeah, I just
Thank
finished
you,
the
Armin.
trilogy, so I'm 2 books behind Armin. And it's a YA. It's like a fantasy YA. That's the first one, and it's
That's the cover? I mean,
Yeah.
or is that the whole book?
no, that's the
Okay.
cover, just the cover.
Okay.
I didn't think to bring props like other people did, so I had to pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote mine on strike when I was on strike. That's when I started mine. So Armin, it took me like 5-6 years to do mine too, because
Oh
I
my
started it
Wow.
when I was in the picket lines. I would picket in the morning and come back. So when was the strike? 2007?
I think so.
Or 8.
Yeah, into 8. So I would picket in the mornings, and then I would come back and work on the book in the afternoons just to stay sane. And so it took me like 5 or 6 years to finish the first book, and then I got a publishing deal, and they bought 2 more, and I had to write the other 2 while I was like on elementary. So I was either writing them in my rare moments of quiet there, or at home at night. And it took me another 4 or 5 years to finish them, and now they're all done. The last one just came out in June or July. Yeah. And I don't have a physical copy because of COVID. Like I actually do not have a physical copy of my 3rd book yet, but they're out there. People are buying them. So. My friends had them. I went over to a socially responsible, socially distanced get together, and my friend's been reading them to his kids. So.
Oh,
That's
cool.
awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's the synopsis on the storyline?
It's about 3 modern day high school kids from San Francisco, where I grew up. And on the first day of school, one of them, the main character, Billy, who's never really fit in, he's mixed race, and he just arrived in the city. He has no friends. He's like never fit in anywhere. He has a panic attack because of a series of events. And somehow that panic attack transports him and his first day of high school crush and the school bully simultaneously all to another world, which is like a fantasy world where the humans and the goblins have just fought this big war, and the goblins lost, and the humans have decided they have had enough of the goblins, and they're coming to basically wipe out all the goblins and commit genocide. And the goblins have a prophecy that whenever they're in trouble, a human child will appear in the caves below their city and become their king and save them. So they're pretty sure one of these 3 kids is their king.
Wow.
And then it's an epic. It's like it's for 10 to 14. It's middle readers.
Aw.
Into like high school, but yeah, it's a giant epic.
How wonderful.
The last book I wrote, there's a 100-page long battle in the last book.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's amazing.
For those of us that
No,
like the battle,
It's like, it's what you want at the end of a big book like
Battle
that, right?
scenes.
A big
Yeah.
trilogy has to end in a big giant battle. So there's
They're
a
the best scenes.
ginormous battle with why
why did you decide to
goblins.
write for young adults?
Well, I guess I just that's how I started out wanting to be a writer in the first place, was reading young adult fantasy and young adult science fiction, like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and The Hobbit and stuff like that. So I think I just wanted to write something that I would have liked when I was a kid. And yeah, there was also the books are also a little bit of a reaction against Prince Caspian, which is the 2nd book in the Narnia trilogies. But specifically watching the movies, I don't know whether you've ever seen it. Prince Caspian is like these 4 English school kids come back to Narnia, and it's been taken over by scary brown people, and then they just murder them all and help install a new king. And I was just like, I don't really like watching these people murder all these,
No.
I feel bad for all those soldiers.
I'm always disappointed by those the movie versions of Pullman's Dark
Yeah.
Materials.
It's tough. It's tough to
End
execute
of
those.
Game. They're just terrible movies and
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful books. If people
Yeah.
haven't read them.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to do something where it showed the ostensible bad guys were basically just like we did on Deep Space Nine with the Ferengi and the Klingons and everything else. How the ostensible bad guys were just people, just trying to do their thing and trying to take back their ancestral land. Which is why they keep attacking the humans. So it's that kind of thing.
And we're going to include that all that information in the description box of this video. We will also include all the information regarding walking art made by Malissa which is what has been keeping you busy, Melissa. But we also want to know, can you tell us a little bit about that? But also, did Aron ever give you any stories, Mr. Aron Eisenberg, the late great, about playing video games in his trailer or drawing pictures, or what was he doing to keep himself busy? Was he playing basketball with Cirroc?
To keep himself busy, probably looking for a corner to sleep in. Aron had this knack of being able to sleep anywhere and fall asleep instantly. And I was so jealous because it takes me a while to go to sleep, and he'd be like, okay, good night. And I'd still be talking, and I'm just like, he's asleep already? But
don't you think that's because he was a ball of energy, and so when he went to sleep, he was recharging his batteries?
Yes.
There was nothing left by the time he went to sleep.
Yeah. He would go and go and go and then drop. Go, drop. Yeah. So, and he was an avid video game player. And one of those, the role-playing, he liked D&D and things like WoW, and just he was very much a gamer.
Yeah.
So tell us about walking art made by Melissa. You have so many designs that are inspired by Star Trek, but not just that. There's a lot of other amazing stuff like Armin showed us a little bit ago.
Yes, it's essentially to make functional art that you can take in the world with you. Like this t-shirt I made today. And Armin's mask. I made that as well. And then there's just a bunch of different things that pop up. Shirts, bags, masks, and figurines and other stuff. Whatever really pops into my head and I need to get out to make.
What's your hottest selling item thus far?
Probably the masks.
Everybody needs a mask.
Everybody needs a mask. Or the Trekkins. Make little Trekkins. Little.
Hey guys, how cool is it that the thing that sells the most are masks right now? I think that's awesome.
It's awesome, but it's sad at the same time.
Yeah,
it just shows how responsible Trekkies are. We're responsible people.
We love
I don't even get shipped to Washington D.C. though at all.
I wanted to ask you, Sid City Social Club. How did you come up with the name for that?
Well, Sid City Mel came up with the name Sid City because that was what she perversely called what can only be described as a fan club. But 25 years ago, she started it.
Oh, wow.
So it was been going for quite a while. And so she wanted to call it Sid City something. And because of the Buena Vista Social Club, we thought it'd be funny to call it the Sid City Social Club. But in fact, it has turned out to be precisely that, a social club. The same people, a lot of the same people, I'd say 60% of the people come back again and again and again, and they get to know each other and learn from each other and nourish each other. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
Sid, have you had any instances where, because I know you're extremely open to conversation during these meetings, like you really go in depth with the people. And the reviews I'm hearing from everybody consistently is how grateful they are that you take the time to get to know them and to really talk to them, like not just like a quick signature at a table, but an actual conversation among friends.
Yeah, sure.
Which is they always seem very moved by it. But is there something that you've learned, whether it's in general or specifically from one person in these interactions?
I think, and Armin might attest to this, the one frustrating thing about conventions, and it's always lovely to see our colleagues, but you don't really get to interact with the fans except as a kind of as petting zoo kind of scenario, where they may come and have their photograph taken with you and then off they go. And it just was really interesting, especially during this particular time, to have a moment to talk to people about what they were going through. It started about COVID. I mean, we really needed to know what everybody's experiences between people in Russia and Japan and China, et cetera, et cetera. And they all have something to say, something to contribute. And then we dug a little deeper and we found out a bit about their lives, what their favorite ideas were, what they were hoping to achieve with their lives. And the conversation was not about me, it's really about them. And I know I do share this with Armin, is that I'm not really comfortable with the fan-star dynamic. I don't think it's a really good, healthy dynamic. Two friends, even friends for a day is a great dynamic. But the taking of being told you're lovely is always remarkable, lovely, obviously, great. But actually finding out how lovely other people are is much more edifying.
And if I may chirp in here just a second, I watched Sid do this on one particular episode that he had. He was really good at digging deeper and deeper to find out what people's, as he said, hopes and aspirations were. And people said the most amazing things. I was totally moved by the stories that people were telling. And Sid made them feel very comfortable and willing to share with strangers some very deep, dark feelings. I was enormously moved by that.
Yeah, it's quite something. And so, and I think it may have helped some people who have maybe are not so aligned to being around during this time, cut off from their friends, their family. And they know that they can meet the same people again on Tuesday and again on Friday, and they just have to wait a few days and they can meet them again. And they do all the work, they all the club members are the ones who do the work. They're chatting away and they have a Discord and they are all busy making sure each other's okay. And we haven't been Zoom bombed yet by kind of drastic pornography or anything. I know that's a tempting fate, but my goodness, Mel is so good at knowing how to manage people in the Zoom, but we haven't had anybody do anything weird. Well, we've had plenty of weird stuff, but that's been great.
I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
You don't have to guess, Sid. It's not a guess that you've helped people. Everybody comes away saying behind closed doors, not even in public, how much it helps. So definitely thank you very much for that.
We take group responsibility, as you will find out when you come along, anyone who wants to. It's a group thing.
But you brought up an interesting point because, Sid, you're able to talk one-on-one with people, really get to know intimate details about how their life is and how they've been affected by your performance and the show in general. And I know, Armin, you've also got that feedback. My question to you, Robert, is are you able to get that feedback? Do you ever get moments where people say, that episode really did this? I mean, we have the luxury of doing these kinds of conventions and seeing people in these kinds of ways. But sometimes, Robert, I wonder if you're able to get that feedback.
I mean, I think I've been on the internet since back in the day, right? On the discussion boards and things like that. Back from the wild woolly days of the all Star Trek Deep Space Nine boards and Rec Art Star Trek Current and all these old bulletin board services. So that was my main way of interacting with the fans for years and years and years. And now I just do Twitter, which is easy, and I answer questions, and people do say how much they loved and appreciate the show. It's a frequent thing that people say, and every once in a while I'll get a PM from someone. My PMs aren't open, but I follow a lot of other writers actually. And every once in a while, I'll get a PM from someone in the business who'll say how much the show influenced them or how much it meant to them. So that's always cool. It's probably not anywhere near as personal and intense and it's me hiding behind words, on a screen, which is what I do for a living, not actually interacting with human beings like you guys do. But it's nice. It's really sweet. It's generally the show is really well. I mean, from what I can tell from social media, the show is becoming more and more well regarded by the day. Almost, it seems like as we sort of said back in the day, that they'll love us when we're dead, but it seems to have happened before that. So that's a good thing.
Everybody at home, by the way, Mr. Wolfe here is an excellent follow on Twitter. So please go follow him. Sometimes he treats you to like these full-scale maps of the Bajoran world and all kinds of other really cool, interesting things that are Star Trek and non-Star Trek related. So definitely check him out on Twitter.
I have the writers. Actually, have the writers in. I created in my little office in Paramount. I drew a map of Bajor when I first showed up. Like before the show even came on the air, I just drew a bunch of continents, and then I started filling in every single place we'd mentioned over the course of the 7 years of the show. And when I left at the end of season 5, Brad and Dave Weddle and Thompson took it over, and they continued doing that. And so at the end of the show, they gave me this whiteboard that is the map of Bajor that has all the cities and towns and everything on it. And it's in my garage. It's hung up on the wall. And so, yeah, I took some pictures of it about a month or two ago and showed it to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of an artifact. It's cool.
What do you think of that,
giant
Sid?
D&D campaign that is Bajor? Because it's my, it's just me drawing a big D&D map basically, and then filling it in. So.
That's just epic. I mean, it's like when you open the book, the Tolkien books, you go through the pages and you see all the maps. And it's just, I love those bits. They were my first bit.
I drew a map for my books too, because when I first gave them to my nephews to read, that was the first note they came back to me with. It was like, "Where's the map? There's no map." So I had to draw a map. So there's a map in the books too. So
good.
Okay, Hana.
I just see this dry erase board with Bajoran map and somebody just erasing it like, oh, I'm sorry.
Not sure it would come. I mean, you could probably get that ink off after 25 years, but it would be a lot of work. Well, yeah. Some of that ink is older than many of the people watching this, probably.
I think you were going to say me, and you're probably right.
I was doing the math, and I was like, no, because that's not possible. Like
that's true. I was around.
You were born for the show.
You were born, Hana. You were born. You were
barely.
Ink isn't older than you, but
it's close.
It's close.
It's close.
I was about to say that.
But Hana, I did want to ask you a question. Hopefully this will open a door to another conversation we want to have stemming from Mr. Wolfe's thoughts and questions that he'll have. But Hana, on Deep Space Nine, and before that, actually, initially on Next Generation, I believe in the Star Trek franchise, you were the product of the very first interracial marriage, right?
I believe that is correct.
And I just wanted to know, like, is that something that you knew? I mean, I know you were really young initially, but as the years progressed, was that something you were aware of, or did you become more aware of that after you left Star Trek? Or was it, just like 2 years ago at a convention that people were like, dude, do you realize that? When did that really pop into your head about how important that was?
So I don't think, during filming, I didn't really think anything of it, because I am an interracial child myself, my father being Japanese, my mom being Caucasian. I think the only difference I really noticed while filming is that it was switched around, having my on-screen mother being Japanese and then my on-screen father being Caucasian. I didn't think it was that big of a deal until recently. Somebody actually mentioned it to me. I can't remember exactly who it was, but especially nowadays with all the negativity, it doesn't matter what race you are. If you look different, it's just with the world going on, oftentimes people just push you aside and don't like you. And the fact that we've portrayed that on screen, I don't know, how many years ago was that? 15, 20 years 25. Ago? Is phenomenal. Star Trek is amazing in the sense that we have brought on so many things. It's been like, so many things have been the first on Star Trek. The first kiss with an interracial couple, the first interracial family, and it's just, I'm proud to be a part of it and to be part of the legacy of bringing the diversity into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just recently saw the Disney's Mulan movie, and it's starring Rosalind Chow, and as I was watching it, I was saying, that's Hana's mom, and you'll always in my mind, she'll always be, Mrs. O'Brien. But
of course,
you know, she's moved on and done a fantastic job at representing, you know, Asian American culture in television and films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have yet to see it, but I heard it's absolutely amazing, and I'm just so excited for her. I just like I talk to her on Twitter every once in a while, and I just keep mentioning it to her. I'm like, I'm so excited for you. I still need to watch it. And she's currently just like doing a bunch of tour, or I guess it's Zoom stuff now, but still promoting and doing a bunch of stuff for the film. So she's a very busy lady, and it's amazing. Very stoked for her.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, Robert, we've teased it enough. Now,
actually have to be coherent.
Yeah, we've discussed a little bit of a couple questions you kind of wanted to ask Sid and Cirroc, and maybe for everybody on the panel.
For everybody,
to chime
really.
in.
I think one of the things I wanted to talk about was, you know, Star Trek has a real tradition of diversity, which is great. It's a wonderful thing, and I think it's a very important part of the franchise. I think Deep Space Nine, interestingly, was one of the few in which not only do we have a diverse cast, but we actually talked about race, which the other shows didn't really do. In that there were no stories about what it meant for Uhura or Geordi to be black. You know, there were no stories really addressing the cultural heritage of Sulu, particularly. You know, and so or you know. Harry, you know, or any, I don't think, I could be wrong. Maybe Harry Kim got his moments, but I felt like on Deep Space Nine, probably at least partially because of Avery being a little bit more insistent on it, but I think also because of where Michael and Ira's heads were at, we actually got to explore those issues more, you know, in episodes like Far Beyond the Stars or even Bada Bing Bada Boom, or like a lot of the episodes. We got to have a little bit more of that be present. And I just wanted to sort of ask you guys how you felt about it. I mean, Sid, you know, I don't know. I mean, you were a groundbreaking face for television at the time, for sure, right? I mean, and I don't think we've ever talked about it. So I just was wondering what you thought about it, what Cirroc thought about it, what Hana thought about it. Armin and I talked a little bit about like the Ferengi and the controversy around, you know, their what if they were standing in for specific, if they were standing in for a specific ethnic group. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
No. Well, yes, Europeans, but Americans, but obviously there are other theories. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it could be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, it is an interesting discussion. Where are you on that, Cirroc? I mean, you were a young man, but you came up under Avery's wing, and Avery was probably the most vociferous activist for certainly for racial issues. What was your aftertaste? How did it feel at the end of the whole thing? Where did you end up?
Yeah, you know. Well, now as I review the show, I see different things about like what Robert's talking about, how they address race. And it's interesting for me to watch it now. One particular episode that's coming out to mind, Ryan, is the one where Sisko is inside of the cage. Do you guys remember that episode?
Second
Robert?
season, yeah.
Second season.
Yeah,
where,
Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Paradise?
Right. And they kept trying to have him remove his uniform, and that cage, though, was so poignant.
Yeah. Yes.
That box.
And that box. And he was, you know, there was a scene in which he was, you know, he volunteered to go back into the box because he knew that was where they were going to put him, but he walked in there on his own. And watching the scene was difficult for me because I understood that is somebody's real story. Somebody really had to live that kind of humiliation and that kind of degradation. So that was really emotional for me to watch Sisko crawl into that little box and be treated, you know, in this slave kind of way. But what is remarkable about the show and what I'm especially happy about is that we had this representation of black men, in particular, in my case with the Siskos, that were articulate, that were educated, that were really
leaders.
Yeah, they were, and part of the vision of a future where Black people could see themselves in the future and in that positive light. And I think Avery carried the weight of that because his activism is long and his struggle is real. And he comes from these times, and he comes from the era of having to really tackle such things here in America. So it was something that he wore heavy on his shoulders. Now, I didn't grow up the same way. I didn't grow up during the same time. I had a more multinational, multicultural upbringing in West Hollywood. And so I didn't face the same things that he faced. I didn't face the same things that my father faced. But I understand the importance of it, and I understand the significance of being just treated like a human being with respect, and also being seen for something other than just the color, but who you are as a person in your mind and your aspirations, your intellect. And so I think that what this show did, what Deep Space Nine did, was give us a chance to be that representation, and I'm really grateful for that. Robert, the stories that you guys wrote, Ira, Michael Pillar, everybody who took the time to tell these stories, because oftentimes we're marginalized. These stories about Black people are really confined into a certain box of stereotype. But, you know, he's the this, he's the that, he's the this. But to see somebody who's a captain or a commander and in a leadership position, this is before Obama was president. So I don't think we hadn't seen a Black leader of this magnitude in a consistent basis who was intelligent and articulate on screen. So I believe that, you know, in some ways it was part of the paving of the way for somebody like Obama to be accepted and to be, you know, seen as somebody that could do the job.
Great. Yeah, that's really wise. I mean, I think very simple. I don't know if anyone has a follow-up to it.
I had one follow-up, which the one thing I also wanted to talk about real quickly with you, Cirroc, is how important it was for Avery to show that great father-son relationship, to show an African-American father and son who had this really strong bond that was full of love, and like the love was so genuine, it came across, of course. I think that was very, very important to him. In the same way, even more, but in the sort of in the same neighborhood where it was very important to him that his love interest be African American or Black. But I just thought that was really a beautiful thing, and that was a lot of that was Avery. I have to give him a ton of credit for that.
Yeah, and I want to just to follow up on that. Why is it important? Because the absence of the Black males in the family household is a reality that we deal with as a culture. So Black people have have more likelihood to grow up in a household where their father is not present. And I think that in itself was one of the major catalysts for Avery having so much significance and putting so much onus on being a Black father, being present in his child's life, making sure that he's there to provide the kind of guidance and upbringing that would make him a young man and turn him to another Black man who was had the advantage of that. And that's another thing that you did well as far as showing 3 generations of Black people on screen, with my grandfather played by Brock Peters. So yes. now you see the line. You see, okay, well, if you have a Black father in the household, then that person is more likely to be successful. That person is more likely to accomplish their goals. And then that would just transfer over to me on the 3rd generation of that totem pole. So I think that meant a lot to Avery to counter the narrative that Black people were absent in the household, and counter the narrative that Black people are a certain kind of stereotype. And those things are the things that meant most to him.
I just want to follow up on that real quick, because I think one of the other things that we were conscious of, I think, or at least I was conscious of, I can't speak for everyone, was that one of the Sisko family story is a success story in that Sisko's father was a restaurateur, right? wasn't Starfleet. He wasn't like he ran a nice little restaurant in New Orleans, right? And then his son is a Starfleet captain, and that man's son is a celebrated novelist, at least in one version of the future. And this is a story about a family that is, even in the weird whatever post-class world of Star Trek, it's a family that is sort of ascending on the ascent partially because of what you were just saying, partially because they had such a strong family bond that's passing from generation to generation. It means each generation is lifting the next.
Absolutely. And that's how we got here. Remember that those of us in our past, our relatives that were struggling through slavery and struggling through Jim Crow and oppression, those people had to have a vision of a better day for them to persevere through that time that they went through. So those slaves in those days on the plantation must have known that there would be a day that their children's children would not have to go through that, and that they would have the ability to have the privileges of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it is their struggle that we build on as time goes on, and that's the progression of it. And that's also why it was important for Avery to have this future version of something to look forward to. It is the future that we're always trying to see a better version of ourselves and leave better off than what we inherited.
And that's why he took the job, right? I mean, that actually is specifically why he took the job, because he wanted to be that representation for young Black children to be able to watch someone on TV that was a starship captain, that was the hero of the show. That's correct, right? I remember him talking about that.
That is correct. That's why he took the job. That's why he was passionate about it. That was what got him up every day, because he understood that the legacy was there. I mean, since then, it's been 25 years or 20 years since it was off the air. And before, I can't think of a show that featured a Black family in a positive, non-comical light. It still doesn't exist, really. That in a positive, non-comical light.
This Is Us, maybe, but it's
I was going to say, This Is Us does a great job with that, but that is a top-notch written
third
show.
or a quarter of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah.
So that's how few and far between it is. I mean, it's not like, oh yeah, that one and this one and that one and this. It's not that many to choose from. And even in that This Is Us, remember, that's kind of a slightly dysfunctional relationship. It wasn't a functional father-son relationship that they had. His father abandoned him and they rekindled and reconnected. There were reasons for that, but it wasn't a father who was present in his children's lives.
It's more, I'm talking about the next generation down for sure. But it didn't have the same level of like 3 generations of sort of functional, like really tight and wonderful family people working together to make everything better for each other.
And may I ask, was this a function of the writing, or was this something that Avery asked for?
From my point of view, it was both. It was definitely something Avery asked for, 100%. Like Avery was like, I need to have scenes with my son. I mean, that's how he referred to Cirroc. It was my son. It wasn't Cirroc. It wasn't Jake. It was my son. And I think that was something we as a staff embraced. But it was also Michael from the very beginning wanting to tell a father-son story. I mean, that was the inspiration. That was the key emotional relationship for Michael the whole time. Like, that was Michael's inspiration. This is The Rifleman, which is a show about a father raising his son on the frontier, right? That's where he was coming from. And I think Michael, had some issues with his father and was really dedicated to telling a story about a good father-son relationship, which he tried to enact in his own life with his kids. It was important to me because I had not the opposite experience. My father was absent. And so although interestingly, like my family line is trucker, Army colonel, writer. It's actually a very reflective, like social structure. But for me, I wanted to portray this relationship because I think I was kind of trying to write a relationship I wish I'd had. And I can't speak. I think Ira did have a really good relationship with his dad. Renee, I know, has a really good relationship with his father. And so Ron, I don't think we ever really talked about it enough. But so I think it's something like father-son issues or something that obviously is transcultural, but ultimately, like, I think the importance of it to Avery was very strong, and it just was in our heads all the time. Like, we got to get some moments for them together. Also, they were great. Like, the other thing that I've talked about this before, I think, but writers are really selfish, and we want to write what works. And so if something is great, we're gonna write more of it. You know, the fact that Hannah's character got lines and moments, you know, that doesn't happen a lot with young actors. It's because she was good, and they were charming, lovely moments. But we knew if we wrote moments for Avery and Cirroc, they would be spectacular. And so that's why we wrote more of them. Whoa, let's write more stuff for Armin and Max and Aaron. Let's write stuff for Sid and Terry and Andy. You know, like we sort of identified like scenes that we knew would work, moments and pairings that we knew would work, because we were writing so fast, and so we would often like sort of double down on those kind of scenes.
You did a really good job with Avery and Cirroc, and it's a very delicate thing to bring up race, to allude to it in a utopian show, show that is 400 years later, when all this has been rinsed away, when there is no color. And, you know, in a way you could have fallen into a trap of really breaking a cardinal law of good sci-fi, and that is over-egging contemporary issues and projecting them into the future, when that future might have dealt with it very differently. But you were smart, in my view, because you had the character of Bashir, who was really seen as colorless. 100%. And he was, and so he really was the product of the future. And he was just a Starfleet officer, Starfleet medical. And he wasn't, he was, I think you must have gone out of your way to make sure that his cultural heritage was not explored, was not unearthed. It wasn't interesting enough.
Let's talk about a very specific example of that, where you corrected us on that. There was a moment where we had to come up with Julian's full name. I can't remember why, but the original name that we came up with was something like Julian Saladin Bashir, I think, or maybe it was Malik or something like that. And Sid came back and said, I have a request. Please, please, please. Can you make the middle name something to further muddy the waters about Julian's ethnic background? You remember that?
Yeah.
And so the middle name we gave him, Subutai, is a Mongol name, which weirdly kind of prefigured Khan, but the whole Khan thing. But basically, like, that was purposeful. We actually, because Sid said, "Hey, don't do this. Don't give him two Middle Eastern names and a European name. Give him a third name that is even more like further afield."
It was really important to me because of the fact that, you know, we live in a society, and don't forget that the Rodney King riots had happened just weeks before we started filming. And in many cases, a bit like the scenario situation right now, the atmosphere was febrile, and your blackness walks in before you, you know, and that's really a terrible position to be in for a person. And it just seemed like we could do better. And for Avery had his own agenda, which was actually really coherent and beautifully thought out. I was nowhere near as smart as that. So I did not want to take on that subject. And I really liked the idea of becoming just a person and not being a black person or an Arab person or a brown person. And, you know, one day we will see in America where all Americans are just Americans. They're not Italian American or African American. They have no substrata that they've got to deal with. We've got to shuffle through to feel sympathy for. At least I hope that day comes. I think that we'll always remember what has happened here in the United States, that is, for those people living in America, and certainly around the world. But I do hope that one day our Jewishness, our blackness, these things become just normal about us, and sources of pride and interaction between people.
100%. it's interesting for us as writers because we just wrote Bashir as English. Like that was it. Like what in our mind it was like this is an Englishman. Clearly, listen to him. And so we just embraced the Englishness a little, like not to like we didn't go deep into it.
Well, you did by giving me the relationship with O'Brien, because that's such an archetypal duo.
Well, of course, the Irishman and the Englishman.
Oh, there you go.
And all that. Like, I'll tell you something that I do see people talk about on the internet. Why would O'Brien sing Jerusalem? Like in what world?
We just saw that, Cirroc. I was going to bring that up.
Irishman in any circumstances sing Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? Can you tell us the story of that? You remember the story of why it came to Jerusalem?
It can't have been me.
I think it was called. So here's the story from my point of view. Originally, they were supposed to sing Space Oddity.
Wow,
we couldn't get the rights. And then we tried to get the rights to Rocket Man, which also would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get the rights. Or they were too expensive, you know? It wasn't that we couldn't get them. It's just that, like, you know, David Bowie wanted, like, at the time, like, you know, more money than we would pay, like, the entire guest cast. And the same thing with Elton John. And so we were at a loss. We were like, we need these two guys to sing a song to bond in this moment. And we have no idea what they should sing. And someone said, well, just make it something traditional that's free. I'm like, what should they sing? And I think we asked Colin and you, what should they sing? And I think it was Colin's idea.
I just wouldn't have had the temerity to have told Colin what to say. He outranked me as a human being, as an actor, as just about everything.
And so the thing, I don't know, maybe Jerusalem is a specifically English hymn, and it's sung in this sort of Anglican church, and it's very much a song of the estate. Or
the great colonizer.
The great empire. It's an imperial song.
It's an imperial colonial imperial
song.
It's absolutely about people bending to the British.
100%. And specifically, sometimes those people were Sudanese, but sometimes they were also Irish. and
there we go. We both of us ex-colonies.
100%. And so
it's a beautiful. But
it's a beautiful moment, and it's such a great moment, and it's just such an interesting choice that he made. And I think his argument was it's a song they would both know. Like however they feel about it politically, it's a song they would both know. And that's why he chose it, I think.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the whole thing. But it was an interesting moment, you know?
You know, guys, I'm really sorry to say this, but we're very close to out of time. We still do have some time. Cirroc, I know you got a very interesting thing you're about to say, so I'm sorry for jumping in there.
No, I had a piggyback off of that. One question was, Sid, did you know the words to the song already, or did you have to look it up or anything? That was the first thing. And the second thing was about the names. Robert, we talked about the names. You said you didn't want to give him this, a different name, for a middle name for Julian. And I thought that same conflict came up for Cassidy Yates and Sisko's eventual second wife. So I was told that she was given a different name that was more recognizable in today's, Black women names, quote unquote. But and that there was a conscious decision to change it to something that was less recognizable.
Well, Sid, you go first.
I certainly wholeheartedly recommend that, but I didn't have anything to do with the Cassidy Yates name.
No, but did you know the words to Jerusalem?
I see. Sorry, yes. Got hijacked by just much more interesting subject matter. if I could be nudged, I would look up. Yes, I was in the school choir for 10 years. I sang that song, week in, week out. So I probably now I've forgotten them, but I would have known them pretty well.
I was going to ask you to sing it for us.
Negative.
No.
Bring me my bow. I can't remember.
I don't even know the song. I have no idea what it is.
Da, 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 till we have built Jerusalem and England's green and pleasant.
Green and pleasant land, and did those feet
like
that bring me my
Anyway.
bow, all those things. Yeah,
My Chariots of Fire. The movie Chariots of Fire takes its title from a lyric of the song.
Exactly.
And the lyrics were written by William Blake, a poet, the guy who wrote Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Cassie, I don't remember. I mean, I know we named her after Yeats. We named her after Yeats, the Irish poet. Like that ultimately what we did. Like that's where the last name came from.
Okay.
Except we just spelled it like it sounds instead of spelling it Yeats, Gates, which is confusing.
That's how Americans
spelled it.
Americans
Yeah,
spell
that's how it's spelled.
And I heard that it was Ben Franklin who said that he knew that what the English spelling was of various many different words. He said, "We're going to spell it differently, God damn it, because the English spell it this way."
Well, that was actually, to be fair, jail. I mean, come on. You can't defend that spelling. That's an indefensible spelling. Sorry about the phone. So we spelled it Yates. Cassidy, I can't even remember why Cassidy. Ira is such a Western fan, it was probably Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, that's probably where it came from. Sorry about the stupid phone. And we just put it as a K instead. But I can't remember if we had a different name that was more identifiably like African-American, Black.
I think there was originally, at least
I believe
from
you.
my understanding. And it was, I don't remember, I don't know what the original name was, but it was, more of a stereotypical name. And I think there was a conversation to change it to something more generic and less identifying. And Cassidy, I thought was a good compromise.
I think,
could I ask, interrupt because I know we're running out of time, but could I just, I would love to know from Armin whether he would have been able to write Illyria had he not done Deep Space Nine.
Yes, I would have been able to write it. I wouldn't have had a publisher. I wouldn't have had a publisher if I hadn't done Deep Space Nine. Or my
it's the love of Shakespeare that really propelled this.
Yes, Shakespeare propelled the novel. Thank you for asking that, Sid. Very quickly, the Shakespeare propelled the novel, but the publishing, both for all the novels I've done, would never have happened without Deep Space Nine.
That's really interesting.
And before we go, Armin, do you have any final thoughts on Deep Space Nine and Commander into Captain Sisko and what that meant back in the 90s, whether personally or generationally?
Well, we all knew that Avery was an advocate for blackness, for that, and he was unashamed by it. He was vociferous about that, and we knew that, he was a black captain on Star Trek. So that was pretty obvious. That was very obvious, and the stories reflected that sensibility, which we were very proud of as being part of the background of that. So absolutely. I'm very proud of the fact that I was on the Star Trek show that had a black captain. Oftentimes people will ask me, well, which Star Trek were you on? And it's easy to say the one with the black captain. I don't do that anymore. I say I'm the one with the bald cap.
The other one.
And then I leave it for them to decide. But I do. But the question of names, if I may quickly, because I know you're running out of time.
Please.
A question that's been asked me 1,000 times. A question I've had on my mind for 25 years. Maybe Robert can answer it. Is Quark my first name or my last name?
Quark is your only name. Quark, I believe that like the Icelandic, the Ferengi only have a single name and then they identify themselves as son of
Keldar.
X.
Keldar, yeah.
Keldar. So yeah, it's Quark, son of Keldar. That's the whole thing. That's it. That's all there is.
Thank you for answering a question I've had forever. I can die now. I can die now.
And of course, they don't even acknowledge the mother's name because.
Of course. Why would you?
No, I know, right?
Finally, before we give Cirroc the last word here, Malissa, there was something that was said a little bit ago that made me think of you when they said that there was a character, Benjamin Sisko, that kind of moved up in the social ranks to become a captain. Did that remind you of anybody in particular?
Of course, Nog. I mean, that's the easy answer for that. Yeah, his story was a pretty spectacular one, and one that touched so many people, and rightfully so, because Nog had a lot of heart, and so did Aron. So, yeah, Nog wouldn't have been who he was without Aron, and I think vice versa.
And I know that
Aron
Aron
written that storyline if it had been a different actor. Like again, writers are selfish. He was spectacular, so we wrote him the storyline.
And he too, he and Max, Ram and Nog are another father-son relationship that were emulating. Each of the father-son relationships emulated each other, and I believe there's an episode where you dealt with that. Where you dealt with the two father-son relationships.
I think there were, Heart of Stone was one for sure. There were a number of times we tried to parallel those relationships. And ultimately, like, we're speaking about race a little bit. Nog's story is one of assimilation, right? And sort of the beneficent colonialism that is the Federation. This is a local kid who joins the colonial government essentially and joins the colonial military and rises in the ranks, which is a real thing that happens. And we just thought it was an interesting thing to see, and also for Quark to react against, for Quark to the traditionalist to be able to say, both of my brother and my nephew are losing their culture. And is that good? Even though it feels good for the characters, is it really good? So anyway, that was part of what we were aware of too.
I enjoyed poking fun at the Federation, which after all it is Star Trek.
We are the good guys, but still, you got to question it sometimes a little bit.
Depends on perspective.
Yeah. Well, that was why. Look, that's why Quark was such an important character,
right?
And Kira too. But like, really, the most cynical about the Federation was Quark, and one of the things that made Deep Space Nine special was we got to question the Federation, and test the Federation. And in the end, what we said was the Federation actually is good, and it will come out on top. But we made it hard, and we rubbed the Federation's face in it when they didn't live up to their own values, and that was something that we thought was an important thing to do.
All right, friends,
What are the high points of the program?
We've got to run, but Cirroc, any final thoughts on your part?
No, my only final thought is, I know it's been said before, but I feel like DS9 was ahead of its time, and I feel like that if it were to come out today, it would be received totally different than it was at the time that it was. Testament to just foresight and issues that stick, that are relevant. So, just kudos to everybody. Thank you, all of you, for your contributions. It's just been an amazing ride, being a part of this team. So I thank you guys.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Cirroc.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Armin, Hana, Robert, Sid, Malissa, and Cirroc, and I thank you from the bottom of our heart for taking the time for us. You're always so great and gracious with us. And also for Mr. Aron Eisenberg, want to thank you. And everybody at home, stick around, and we will see you next time. There's going to be tons of information in the description box below. There's books to buy. There's Sid Cities to go play on. It's going to be a party. You're going to go to walking art made by Malissa and buy masks. We're looking forward to it. Thanks very much, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.